Welcome to the MangaReloaded podcast. This is Matt.
And this is Blake.
Yeah. And today we are going to talk about Berserk and how it is
the worst series
thing.
Ever.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
You know where I'm going.
I didn't know we were both going to the same place.
We're both going to facetiously say it's the worst thing ever because, it's got the highest mouse score and that'll make people mad. So yeah, no, Berserk's a masterpiece. I know it, you know it, everyone knows it. Okay.
Yeah.
However, there is a lot of contention between, I was about to say pre-Golden Age, but that's not right. Okay.
Post.
Between the Golden Age and the post-Golden Age. And whether the narrative quality has dropped, even though the art quality has gone up. So that's one thing you cannot argue, is that Berserk just looks pretty much better and better every subsequent chapter.
Oh yeah, it's so pretty.
It is absurd the amount of texturing he does in the later chapters.
Oh yeah, no, 100%.
Unreal.
Not even an argument. Oh, but I like that old gritty look.
Yeah, no, I kind of like Berserk to me, and like the particularly in like the Holy See arc, kind of has kind of the quality of like, what do you call them? Those wood ink pieces. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
I have no idea.
Where they kind of carve something into wood and then put the ink into it, and it'd be really intricate and whatever. It
Nope.
looks great. Okay, the whole manga looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Very artistic, and the narrative isn't too shabby either. In fact, it's arguably one of the better manga narratively as well.
Yeah.
However,
definitely.
there's a certain segment of the fan base that are Golden Age purists and seem to believe that Berserk got noticeably worse after the Golden Age. Some even say it became like unreadable.
And they're right. Thanks, everybody. I'm kidding.
So, okay, my personal opinion is that the Golden Age arc is definitely one of the tightest written narratives in manga due to two major factors. One is that you kind of know going in that everything is going to go bad. So there's this kind of ticking time bomb effect with the Bailet.
Mm-hmm.
And it you know that everybody is essentially going to die, or at least most of these people are going to die.
Right.
And the only people that are safe are is Guts, really.
Yeah. Guts.
And kind of Griffith.
Yeah, and we know Griffith is still there. But we know something happens to Griffith as well, so it does a great job prefacing that.
The world, the whole setting itself is going to become like a fucking nightmare by the end of this. That all the demons and all the crazy stuff going on and the Dark Swordsman stuff from the beginning of the manga is a result of the Golden Age arc's events.
Mm-hmm.
And having that prior knowledge actually adds tension to it, because it seems like any moment could be the moment. It could be the tipping point. Especially like after they rescue Griffith and it seems like they're going to go become thieves in some far off country somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, when is the shoe going to drop?
Yeah.
And it does.
And then it happens.
But the other thing too is it's written a lot like a Shakespearean tragedy.
Mm-hmm.
Down to the fact that it practically has 5 acts like a Shakespearean tragedy would. You've got 3 core characters that are kind of psychologically being analyzed, and a secondary cast that are all pretty well woven in and have a purpose. There isn't really any extraneous characters.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you got
if there are, they
that
die.
Are tertiary for sure. Like, there's Gaston, who's the guy who works under Guts's fleet.
Mm-hmm.
That's Guts's second in command.
Mm-hmm.
Who's really just a guy that is like, "You're awesome, Guts."
Yeah.
And he's basically there to boost Guts's ego. So yeah, it's not like every character is a deep, profound, or whatever, but and neither are they in a Shakespearean tragedy. But they're no, everybody's there for a reason,
Right.
and you can see where everybody fits in the grand scheme of things by the time the eclipse is over.
Right.
And post Golden Age doesn't have that quality, just because there's still so many hanging threads that
Well,
have yet to come completely into fruition.
I feel like, and going kind of off of what you said regarding the characters, is in the Golden Age, I feel like it did a great job of this core. I mean, just even Guts's inner circle, it like Rickert and Pippin and Judo and everyone, it did a good enough job. Like, even though those weren't the core cast characters, that at the end, when they do die, those that do, you really feel it. Like,
Yeah,
it did a good
even
job.
the guy who wasn't really nice to Guts,
Yeah.
and was kind of a naysayer, I really liked him too.
Yeah.
At least I didn't think he deserved that,
Yeah.
but nobody deserves that.
No. It did a great job building those characters and making you invested and interested in them, so that literally when shit hits the fan and they just start dying off, you feel it. Whereas I feel like post Golden Age, there's really no characters, I mean, other than Guts himself and Casca, of course. And even then, it's like I'm not really attached to any of this current cast. Like, there's
I'm a little further in than you. I'm about 100. I'm caught up. Blake is.
I'm like 100 chapters behind current. Maybe
Yeah.
a little less than 100, but yeah, around there.
Yeah.
I'm at about chapter 250.
Blake is about 20 or 30 chapters away from starting the Great Boat arc.
Whatever that
Did
is.
you know about that meme?
No, I knew nothing about that.
Oh, okay. Well, have fun.
Okay, I will have fun. Don't tell me what to do.
All right. Then.
Well, I mean, even just looking at that arc that comes right after the Golden Age, but like before all the magic kicks in. I mean, I guess the magic kind of kicks in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before
the
we
first...
start getting wizards and stuff.
Okay, so you're talking the second shift. There's like 3 shifts in Berserk, where the whole setting's entire dynamics and what's possible and isn't completely change.
Right.
Happens 3 times. The eclipse is the first time.
So, but before we get trolls,
Yeah.
even then, there's no one really in that cast that I care for too much. I mean, who knows? Maybe they.
Let's see. Who's in Guts' party where you're at? That'd be like Serpico.
Yes, Serpico.
Farnese. Yeah, that's how you're actually supposed to pronounce her name. I know. I want to say Farnese, but it's Farnese.
It is? Okay.
Yeah, I don't like that.
And
Shirka?
Is it Sirche?
Shirka.
Shirka. Okay.
Shirka.
Because again, the translation I read just says silk or silky, but I know that's not right. It's Shirka.
It's Shirka. Shirka.
Yeah, she was the last character that joined the party. So
yeah.
It's Shirka, Isidro, Serpico, Farnese, Casca, and Guts.
A couple others join. One guy that I kind of really like, but that pretty much is the core cast of Guts' group.
Yeah. And again, I mean, at where I'm at, honestly, of all of them, oddly enough, the one that I like the most is Serpico. And I know,
Serpico, yeah.
And I'm sure that's not a totally agreed upon thing, but of those characters, I like him because I feel like he has a backstory. We know his backstory. We understand his backstory. We understand why he's there, why he's doing what he's doing. And it's not just like in the case of Farnese, where it's like, oh, she has a weird fetish for it. Where
I was about to say she does have a backstory.
I know she does,
and I think it's equally as tragic as his. It's just I think it might be a little harder to have sympathy for her just
exactly.
because
She was a pampered rich girl, and she's fucked up. She's fucked in the head. I think the thing is, her story to me is more about developing. She changes a lot as a character. Whereas when we get Serpico, I feel like I like him as a character when he comes in. And it almost kind of feels like, I mean, he's developing too, but in a very different way.
every person in Guts's party, I think, is meant to be a foil with him. Some aspect of where he was.
Mm-hmm.
And and they also kind of if you start setting up Venn diagrams, it's kind of interesting the relationships they have with each other, even ones you wouldn't expect. But okay, so to me,
and Puck, we have Puck too.
Yeah, okay, Puck is actually kind of a problem.
I won't say I hate, but I really don't like Puck.
I don't like Chestnut Puck.
Yeah, that I agree with that.
Actual,
and that's what I was
whenever
thinking.
he's drawn as the actual fairy.
Yeah,
I know elf. I'm sorry,
elf. Yeah,
I know that his character would take offense to that.
He's an elf. Dang it.
Whenever he's drawn and is in like
his actual,
whenever he's not doing
detail,
genie from Aladdin-esque out of setting references.
Yeah.
That nobody else acknowledges, really.
Yeah.
He's okay with me.
I agree.
The problem with Puck is that after the Dark Swordsman arc, he loses his purpose. He's meant to represent the light that Guts still has within him that is receding, and he's meant to help guide Guts towards a better path. But as Guts forms a larger party and no longer has to rely on Puck for exposition and for showing his less brutal side, and as he becomes less brutal as a person, Puck loses purpose within the narrative.
I will be perfectly honest. It's gotten to the point in the story where unless it's full detail drawn Puck, I don't even read what he says anymore because it doesn't matter. Like it has actually gotten to the point where he doesn't even have word bubbles anymore. He just has text next to, or yeah, he'll do something annoying. He'll like take an annoying pose. I really don't. I mean, I don't skip the panels. I don't read what he says anymore. It doesn't matter. Nothing. Yeah. And I hate that not only do they keep Puck around, but now we get annoying Puck 2.0, the female version, who is literally there to be Shirky's conscience. She's
Avalra, I actually like Avalra more than Puck, actually.
I like her more. She has more personality. She's more...
Well, and she's supportive.
Exactly.
She's actually supportive of Shirka, who has, like, low self-esteem and actually kind of needs that.
Yeah. So I get why she's there, but I hate that we have the annoying little moments where it's just her and Puck just doing something in the background.
Yeah. I think Mira feels the need to add comic relief so that things aren't so tense all the time.
Yeah, but now
that's
it's
the thing.
nonstop.
That's just the thing. The Golden Age arc didn't have any of that.
No. I agree 100%. There was nothing. It was deadpan serious from start to finish. And I mean I liked that. But now you have the annoying little jester that just follows the party around, and it's...
I like Puck when he's more diegetic.
Yeah.
And as the story goes on and we get more and more Chestnut Puck, it's less diegetic.
I feel like it's almost gotten to the point where I haven't seen fully drawn Puck in, like, a long time. Like,
yeah.
Again, we get the as you said, the chestnut part. I like that there's even a point where it's referenced where they said, "Oh, the elves are descendants of wind spirits," and he's like, "Wind spirits? I thought I was the descendant of a chestnut." It's like,
Yeah.
oh god. Yeah, I hate the annoying the annoying cutesy character who's just there to sell merch.
I don't even know if Puck's that marketable, tell the
He's
truth.
he's not, but he falls into that category of character who's just cutesy. He and I mean even early on, at the very least, Puck had the function of being the healer. You could sprinkle his pixie dust on things and they healed. But
And you know, I like his function in the Dark Swordsman arc where
yeah,
we actually did need that comic relief a bit because Guts is like raping demons just to shoot them in the face.
yeah,
And like just absurd shit. And Guts is just totally unapproachable in that first couple volumes.
mm-hmm,
You really do need Puck early on,
mm-hmm.
I think.
And
Or
then
else it
after
just kind
that,
of comes off like absurd because you don't understand why Guts is the way he is. And it really makes him unapproachable as a protagonist.
yeah,
Um
and then we get past that.
yeah. I mean, after you've seen the eclipse and everything that went down, you totally get it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I'd probably be pretty mad too. You know?
Nobody goes through the eclipse totally all there.
Yeah,
Um, Now the most contentious character in Guts's party is Shirka,
yeah,
right? Because she's essentially like the equivalent to Guts in terms of power level, but a lot of people feel like she's just a lolly witch, uh,
mm,
cutesy character,
I can
which I don't agree with that 100%.
I can see that, but I agree with you. I don't. She has a function. I mean,
She's totally an extension of what's going on in the setting right
exactly.
now.
I agree. She's
Uh,
she's very well, and just in the same case that Farnese and Serpico were very current to the story when we were dealing with the Holy Chain or whatever. They were very current to that, and now we've kind of shifted into fantasy world, so it's like, well, we gotta adapt more fantasy characters, I guess.
well, and I just mean that like might makes right is kind of fading within the setting where a character like Guts can't do it on his own anymore because they're not just fighting soldiers.
Yeah, we can't just hack
We're
through
dealing with
everything.
astral beings now. The entire physics of the setting has changed.
Yeah.
Um, and I think she's meant to be like an opposite to Guts in that she's fragile. All of her stuff tends to be more defensive, and she's functionally kind of like a cleric, I think. Where she sets up barriers. Yeah, she does have some offensive abilities. Most of it takes time to set up.
Exactly. And that's a big thing about it is Guts.
And the other big thing is that she's the most opposite thing to Guts because she was sheltered and never got to experience the harshness of the outside world until that first adventure they go on together.
Mm-hmm.
And Guts has been exposed to everything.
Yeah. There is no shock value left in Guts. Nothing is a surprise anymore.
So I actually like her character a lot. Of the group of the party that of the characters other than Guts himself that joined the party, I don't know if she's my favorite.
She's
but I
up there.
I like her.
That's fair. I totally get that. But okay, so then comparing that to Golden Age party.
Yeah.
How do you feel about and I mean, I just feel like
Well,
it just kind of goes without saying is or at least in my case, I'm still not as attached to this party though. Like, and I feel like we have the Golden Age party for a lot less time too.
I'm probably the opposite. I'm more attached to Guts' current party than the Golden Age party.
Really?
Yes, I am. However,
I mean,
however,
a big part of that is you've been with them longer too.
yeah, I've read further ahead. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. I'll say this: it took me a while to be used to like the idea that Farnese and Serpico were in the party now. Like they were the hardest sell for me.
Yeah, I think.
Just because they were such bitter enemies of his before, and it took a lot of transition,
Mm-hmm.
and it was well done.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I think one thing, and I know this is just kind of an issue of the setting, but one thing I really did not care for as far as, and again, this pertains to Serpico, is I hate how, I like how his character was built up even before, like, he was a part of Guts' party. It's like, oh, you kind of get the assumption that, oh, he's a priss, he's kind of lazy, he doesn't actually like to be a part of anything, he lets everyone else handle everything. And then you find out it's like, oh no, but he keeps his actual abilities hidden, and he mostly uses them in defense of Farnese.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Serpico is like what Guts would have been like had he never been awoke to Griffith's true perception of him.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Again,
the faithful servant
mm-hmm.
who keeps. He's the faithful servant.
Yeah, he does whatever his master requests, and again, that's how Guts.
And that's kind of how Guts was with Griffith in the Golden Age arc. Guts was killing people whenever Griffith would just say so.
Yeah,
and wasn't really thinking about it too much.
But
and then Farnese is kind of like Guts, but more like the Passion, where Guts kind of became fetishized towards violence. That's her with fire at one point, and more than that, Farnese has a real fascination with the supernatural.
Yeah,
and wants to understand the supernal realm.
Right,
and that's why she became so attracted towards religion.
Yeah.
But
yeah, no. But what I was saying in regards to Serpico is I hate that it's like, oh, then we finally find out, oh, he's like this, he's this master swordsman, he's this amazing tactician, and all of these things, and it's like we only get that when he's an opponent of Guts. Then as soon as it's like, I feel like the first thing that Serpico, when he actually joins the party in that first fight, it's like, oh well, he gets all these cool magic items though, and it's like we don't really see. I feel like, at least where I'm at in the story, and again, I'm not. To
me, it makes total sense why he is so much better at mastering the fetishes than pretty much anyone else.
No,
because the fetishes require you not to have a big ego. You have to be humble towards the spirits that are lending you aid. And Serpico doesn't have ego, really.
Yeah. Well, no, I get that.
Because he's got the servant mentality.
I understand why that works.
Versus Isidro, who has a huge ego.
Right. But what I'm saying is the fact that I don't like, again, and part of it is just I feel like we don't get to see any of those cool talents that he had early on, because he can so quickly lean on those magic weapons. It's like, oh, well, now you don't have to see him as like an extremely dexterous fencer in combat anymore. He can just wave his giant feather and it slices everything in half. I just feel like it, and again, maybe this is partial attachment to that Golden Age era where you didn't have the magic things coming in.
Yeah, things were a lot more real, I guess.
Yeah, if a character was talented, you got to see that talent in battle. There wasn't any extraneous devices that were giving them increased abilities beyond what could be normally comprehended. I mean, of course, everyone was blown a little out of proportion, but then once you sprinkle these magic items into it, it just feels like, well, shoot, all he has to do is just wave his hand around and things explode now. And I know that's also a reflection of where the story has evolved to, but I don't know. As I talk, I guess so far to where I'm at, I probably do prefer the Golden Age.
Yeah, I mean the Golden Age party is definitely good. I, I don't remember. Do you remember what the name of the guy that is like Guts' harshest critic, and he's kind of he was an ex thief.
Corcus?
Corcus, yeah. One thing I like about the Golden Age is I think the Golden Age is entirely about the development of Guts,
Yes.
and every person in that party is meant to push out a different element of Guts
Uh huh.
and meant to develop him. And one thing I like is that the way I've interpreted it, at least, it seems like he's taken on an element of the most significant members of the Band of the Hawk that have died
Mm-hmm.
after he becomes the Dark Swordsman. Because, Corcus's biggest moment is when he volleys a bunch of arrows out against he comes in to basically save the day with his troops.
Mm-hmm.
They were the archers, and they basically help save Guts in the last moments of a very desperate moment. And then, as the Black Swordsman, one of Guts's biggest pieces of equipment is the big repeater arrows.
Mm-hmm.
He learns how to throw knives from judo.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess
What does he pull from Pippin?
I was just gonna say he's got the titanic strength that Pippin had now. I mean, he always kind of had. He was already kind of on that trajectory.
Mm-hmm.
But Pippin helped him develop because Pippin Guts wanted to sit by himself while everyone else was partying, and Pippin was like, no, and picked him up because nobody else could do that to Guts.
Right.
Nobody else could manhandle Guts other than somebody like Pippin.
Yeah.
So he's that big, and just said, "You're hanging out with us." Corcus basically always challenged Guts's current beliefs and made him second guess himself all the time, which I know he was an asshole to Guts, but it taught Guts to actually kind of start thinking about things more.
Well, and again, another thing that I really liked about Corcus is I feel like in many ways, to an extent, I feel like he was almost the voice of reason in most cases. He was the character that said the thing that from a reader perspective that we didn't want to hear. He was the character that was like, once they're all rich, he's like, I don't ever want to be a soldier again. No, this is perfect. I wanted to grow up to be rich and noble. I am here. I'm not working anymore because I like this.
Yeah.
And I like that about Corcus's character because he really he says the logical things. He says the things that make sense, not necessarily from a reader's interest story standpoint, but from a real world perspective. Yeah, that's what you would want if you've been out fighting all of your life just to survive, just to have a meal, and suddenly you're thrown into the lap of luxury. Yeah, why not? Why not stick with it? So that, I mean, again, I like that cast. I think that's a very nice, well-rounded cast. And even, again, the relationship between Guts and Casca. I like that as well.
Yeah.
Though I do like, in a completely different way, how the relationship has developed since the Golden Age. I feel like it's very interesting how it's almost gotten to a point, and again, this is just where I'm at, where Guts essentially has to let his feelings for her go to not lose her.
Yeah.
And it's like where we were dealing with that shadow on Guts, where he had to fight with his own inner urges and his memories of how they used to be. And basically he has to repress everything he's ever felt about her to not lose her completely.
Yeah.
I think that's very poetic, and that's a definite plus that I give to the post Golden Age.
I mean, in a way it's almost more tragic what happened to Casca. Because I mean, for us, the readers, definitely for her too, I guess. I don't know if I want to get into what's worse, murder or rape, but what I mean is for us readers, because that relationship was so well developed and it felt so earned by the time, because she kind of hated Guts at first,
Right.
but it developed so organically, and you basically had that moment in the waterfall, in the cave near the waterfall between her and Guts, where they have sex for the first time, and they both have their own negative experiences with
Their
rape.
past. Yeah.
Yeah, and they have to kind of work through that with each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. It's really very touching, and and the fact is she still has some feelings for Griffith even after that.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be curious to see what she has to say about Griffith now, but probably not
Ah.
anymore.
Yeah. Probably nothing now.
Uh,
Yeah. I feel like how they go, cuz one thing I got to say that I thought, like, when we get that early Dark Swordsman arc, and like it's teased a lot that something happens to, again, before you know the story, that something happened to this character named Casca, and it's almost insinuated that she died, basically,
yeah.
because we had that
In
moment
fact,
where Guts is yelling at Griffith, how could you do that to her? Or, and then we go through the story and it's almost leading you, the whole time it's dragging you along, being like, what happens to Casca?
yeah.
And honestly, again, it leads you, in my opinion, to think that she died or something along that line. And even
Yeah.
when you get to the eclipse, it still leads you to think the whole time, she's gonna be torn to pieces like the rest of the group.
Yeah.
And then to find out what actually happens, and like you said, it's so much more tragic.
Yeah.
But I feel like, in a sense, that was the best way they could go about it if they wanted to keep her character around.
Yeah. Yeah, because if she was totally cognizant, then what's she doing during the Dark Swordsman arc, and why is she letting Guts roam around like doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that was an incredibly well written, again, right off the get go, really bit of intrigue. And I think, I don't know, it's, I recall in the Golden Age arc, again, because I mentioned this to you before we started recording, that I read like half of the Golden Age arc, or the first half of the Golden Age arc, like, I don't know, 5 years ago, something like that.
Right.
I started reading it, and then I had to take an exceptionally long break from Berserk, and I only recently came back to the series. And even then, in that time frame, I know when I would tell people, hey, you got to read Berserk, my favorite thing to reflect back on it was, and I don't remember the characters' names, I really don't, but that moment where Griffith tells Guts to go kill this general in the Midland Army.
Yes.
And we
Yes.
have that moment where, I mean, Guts says, okay, no problem. And so he goes to do it, and you see this general fencing with his son. And it's just setting the, like, it even almost sets you up to be anticlimactic. Like, he's not going to do it. Like, he has a flashback to his own father figure, whose name is
Gambino.
He has a flashback to Gambino, like, reflecting on the father-son moments, and it almost makes you feel like, oh, he's not going to do it.
Yeah, he's gonna have so much like empathy for this kid, and like he
then
relates to him or something. Because the dad's kind of rough with his son.
Yeah.
Or is it a dad or uncle?
Yeah, I think it was
can't
his dad. I'm pretty sure it was his
Okay.
dad.
Yeah.
And
He's
so,
rough on him.
Yeah, so it leads you to believe, he might not do it. And sure as shit, he goes out there and fucking impales the dad. And the son, like, I think the son had, like, gone off for a second or wasn't looking. And then he turns back and sees that Guts killed him. And it was that moment of Guts is like, well, I can't leave any witnesses, so he kills the kid too.
Yeah.
And it was that moment where I'm like, oh my god, this series is so hardcore. I was I'm like, it
It
doesn't.
wasn't the demons or the first panel where Guts is having sex with a demon and shoots it in the face.
No, no, no.
That wasn't what was hardcore. It was this moment.
No, this was the moment. Well, here's the. I mean, it's nothing to have characters go through fucking killing demons. That's whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
It was
Hellsing for that shit.
Here's the thing. It's not even that it was hardcore. It was that moment where I'm like, this series isn't gonna pull any punches, is it?
No, yeah.
And it was like, that was the moment I was so hooked. I was like, this is going to be a good ride. And it has been. Again, I mean, it's changed quite a bit since then. And you could almost say that it's gotten, I don't know. Because I can't say it's gotten softer because it hasn't. But
for me, I read the first 4 volumes, then I watched the Berserk movies, and then I actually read the rest of the Golden Age. I knew that Berserk was going to be a little bit better than like Hellsing, because like for me, when I try to read Hellsing, it's just like absurd violence for the sake of violence, and it doesn't seem to be going towards a greater point, really. I could be wrong. I haven't read that far in, but as far as I'd ever gotten, that's how I felt. But, Puck kind of helped with that. Helped me realize that this isn't going to be... I'm not sure what, but he's trying to say something more because he's got this little fairy that totally clashes with the aesthetic of everything else, but in a good way at that point. It's not like Chestnut Punk clashes, but it clashes in a good way. But I knew this series was really smart. Probably during Guts' youth. Moment that stands out to me is when like Guts is watching Gambino treat a pet dog with more dignity and respect than he's ever treated Guts, and Guts has to watch that, and it does no dialogue. He doesn't think, oh, but you can just look at his face and you can kind of understand what he's thinking, and that kind of tipped me off that this is an author that's contemplating what's going on within the mind. These characters think.
I think it says leagues about an author when you can say a million things without having to say them.
Yeah. There's a lot of standout moments in the Golden Age arc that are just like that. Just tiny little things that are all leading up to the bigger tragedy. Even Gambino, you can kind of understand why he's doing that. Guts has been nothing but a burden for him. He doesn't want to have a kid to deal with, and I think he even blames Guts partially for his accident that he had at that point. Right?
I think so.
And Guts and him were growing distant after the Donovan moment, right, where he pays Donovan to go rape Guts. But a dog loves you unconditionally. People don't.
Right.
I don't know. The series is freaking smart.
Oh yeah, no, it is.
And it's not like it stops being smart after the Golden Age.
I agree. And again, I feel there's a large part of it that comes with just the fact that you've had more time to be with this current cast. And here's the thing: is I don't hate the cast by any stretch of the imagination. I can see how they're all going to develop into being more interesting and lovable characters. I feel like even now, I'm trying to think who I consider to be, excluding Puck, the weakest character of the cast.
What do you think of Isidro, the boy?
Honestly, he reminds me a hell of a lot of Yahiko. Like, every time I see him say something, I'm like, oh my god, he's just Yahiko. And again, he's that young child who sees this impressive adult figure. I mean, he's this even more specifically, he's a thief who just pretty much lives for himself. And then he encounters this character who basically gives him something to shoot for in life.
He's kind of like Guts if Guts was allowed to have a childhood.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. And I
mean, he, his village or whatever was attacked by trolls, I think. They don't ever say exactly what happened to his parents, but for some reason he's not going back home.
Yeah, and it's been teased because I know where I was at, we just had that old guy just ask him, where are your parents at? And he's like, it's none of your business. Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like his character is going to get a lot better as the series continues, because I feel like I had the same trepidations regarding Yahiko when he first started there, but I ended up loving his character at the end. And I feel like I feel a very same way about Isidro, in that right now he's just kind of the kid. He can't. It's like when it's convenient, characters will like put a lot of faith in him just because that's the only way to motivate him as a character. It's like, because it'll be those times where it's like, okay, we need you to stay back. We need you to not be in the fight and protect the woman. And he's like, oh, that's stupid. Why would I want to do that? I want to fight. And it's like, because you're the only one who can do it. This is an important job. And he's like, oh, I do like to be important. All right. I like how there's that general consensus on how to like manipulate him, but at the same time it's like he literally just wants to be stronger. And he again, obviously on the surface he gives you the impression, well, that's the only reason he hangs around Guts, but you get more of almost kind of like a father-son sort of thing toward them, or at least like definitely a mentor.
Guts is not a good teacher. Like, not to spoil too much, but
oh yeah.
I mean, you saw his lesson, right? Where he's like, well, okay, learn to guard and stuff, but honestly, you need to learn to do this shit yourself from experience.
Exactly.
There's lesson number 1: learn it yourself.
Yeah, do it yourself.
Figure out your own style. You can't do mine.
Yeah. Well, I one thing I liked about that scene though is it's like he's kind of heartbroken, but then like he walks away, and I want to say it's Serpico says something to him and was like, that was a really good thing you just did for him.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I would say happens is Isidro picks up things every arc from different people. And not necessarily like he takes on more mentor figures, but you know what, kind of. But none of them ever give him everything he needs.
Yeah. He's
you know what? That's probably the biggest difference between the current cast and the Golden Age cast. Is that the Golden Age cast feels like a bunch of worn out, kind of, they're all adults. They're not as fresh.
Yeah, they all have established personalities going in. Like
Guts' party is very fresh, and they're also just constantly dealing with higher level, like, astral threats,
right?
Versus political land wars.
Yeah, again, the characters are all fairly established. These aren't really characters. I mean, with like the exception of like Rickert because he's a little kid, but essentially these are all established characters who have their roles, and they're not really there to develop so much as they're there to develop Guts.
Yeah.
Whereas the current cast, it's like almost like Guts is the developed character, and now this cast gets to grow around him.
Right. Well, Guts is also kind of becoming like Griffith, in that he's attracting people around him who want to follow him because, for guidance and whatnot, because he seems to be the guy that's the most dependable, that makes miracles happen.
That's interesting.
And I
Ooh.
guess in a way, it's like the Golden Age arc is kind of a microcosm of everything that happens afterwards. I don't know if I'd be able to like I don't know how I'd feel if like another eclipse happened. Like what if Guts killed everybody? Not that this would happen, but like imagine Guts actually kills all of these party members that he's creating,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because an ever growing cast is now starting to build around him.
Mm-hmm.
I won't tell you how large it is now, but it's substantial at this point.
Mm-hmm.
What if the ballot that he's got now went off and he decided to become an apostle just for absurd power to go kill Griffith? Now that might be, bad, and I don't really see Guts doing that
Mm-hmm.
after having experienced that horror himself.
And at the same time, well, here's the thing. The only reason why I couldn't see Guts doing that is just
The Baylit's in his
yeah,
satchel the whole time.
yeah.
It's been there since the beginning, pretty much.
I I feel like he wouldn't do that because I feel like we're seeing a lot of points where he's even noticing that he's getting a lot softer. Like, oh, what I like was there was that moment, and again, this was very fresh for me. But when he is stuck in the den of the trolls, and he basically tells the whole party to go on ahead, run away, and he'll hold off. He'll hold the line, and you have that moment where, and you haven't seen basically Guts's berserking face, where you see him go wild and just start tearing through all of these enemies, and he has that inner dialogue of, I forgot how good this feels, how good it is to not have to protect anyone but myself, and I'm allowed to go wild and just do full swings and cleave hundreds of enemies in half without any abandon or regard for anyone around me. But I feel like to an extent it's setting you up that Guts likes having people depend on him, even though the entire series has been him denying it, constantly denying it.
You mentioned, Guts is getting softer. Do you feel like the story is also getting softer too?
Yes.
So people aren't getting raped as much as they did in the Golden Age arc,
I mean,
which handled it tastefully, except to a point. There's one point in the Golden Age arc where I thought it just kind of got absurd and egregious, like too much. It became too much at one point.
What was that? I'm curious.
What was that? The king wanting
king.
to like fuck his daughter.
Yes. Okay.
And going insane.
I thought that's what you were going to say.
Like at that point, you had like what? Like I understand that things have to be bad so that it becomes more so that it becomes more tragic that Griffith doesn't take over, right? Because it's like, well, if the king is a just king and a good king, then Griffith trying to steal his spot is well, honestly, I'd argue it'd be more tragic because it just shows how empty his goal is. It's purposeless.
He just wants power for power's sake.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't see any purpose for creating trauma for Princess Charlotte other than it makes her more desperate for Griffith.
Yeah.
But it felt like too much, and like honestly, I think it would have been enough if he just punished Griffith and then she started viewing her dad as a monster because of what he did to the torture.
Yeah.
That would have been enough. If she just saw what had happened to Griffith on her dad's command, that's enough reason for her to hate him. Him like going into her room and licking her titties and having like this absurd, like it was too much.
I agree.
At that point, I felt like it was like Berserk had basically ruined. Okay, I understand that there might be too much rape in the Golden Age arc because like all these demons rape, right? But at that point, I don't. Demons can rape all they want because that's the point. Is that they're demons? They're just vice incarnate, and they're horrible, and that's just what they do. But when you're like portraying human characters that are supposed to be believable, like why can't you can show him as a tyrant without doing that.
Yeah.
And it had already been used so tastefully and sparingly before that it almost kind of retroactively, I don't want to say it damages the what's going on with Casca and Guts and their trauma, but it kind of, I don't know, it's just kind of this black spot in Berserk's history for me. It's one of the few moments I thought was poorly written, like flat out bad.
Honestly,
And a mistake.
And it goes right along with what you're saying. There was even a part of me that felt kind of the whole sex scene with Griffith and Charlotte was a little odd. I don't know. I mean,
okay, I would agree.
I feel like, I mean, I kind
that
of,
one at least. I feel like that one at least is up for discussion. Like, why the hell would Griffith basically throw away all of his best laid plans just because Guts left?
Yeah,
Isn't he a cold, logical person that knows that this is putting his plan into jeopardy?
Right.
It does kind of show that Griffith at that point is at least human, and that, you know, he's losing something that is precious to him. Two things. He's lost Casca's love, and he can kind of see that and absolute admiration.
Mm-hmm.
And even though he doesn't plan to do anything with it, like he doesn't plan to have sex with her, he wants to have control over people.
Right.
And the fact that she's falling for Guts and that she's so emotionally attached to him and that Guts is just up and left and that he's losing control over his men and his most important asset. You know, I can at least understand what Miura is trying to communicate with the Griffith thing.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think it seems like somebody as cold, calculating, and as logical as Griffith probably wouldn't do that.
Right.
Like, I definitely agree. It was a little off, but it wasn't like The King where it just felt completely unnecessary. And,
well, it felt unnecessary. And
like it wasn't even communicating. I didn't understand what he's trying to communicate.
Exactly. It just happened. It just felt like it was there. It felt like it was there for shock value.
Like, is he trying to say that anybody can be demonic and evil and do anybody's capable of evil things? It's like we've already had ample examples of humans doing terrible things to each other on both sides, from within and from outside of Griffith's party. I mean, you had all those, the Whale Knight guy who just was trying to rape Casca, you know, and at least that guy is like a battle-hardened, testosterone-ridden soldier who, you know,
he's just there to get his dick wet.
Yeah.
But oh no, I agree, and it just, you could have just as easily told that entire everything exactly the same without that bit. I agree. Without that father rapey bit. You could have just twisted it just a little bit.
Yeah.
And it would have told the exact same thing. I mean, he could still be furious that, oh, his daughter, who, again, wasn't she set up to be like marry this prince of this other big country and make this gigantic social alliance? And it was like, you could have just, that would be the reason why he was pissed, because I know that it would have been like, oh, now his daughter has been soiled, he can't give away used goods now, so it would essentially ruin all of his plans, and that would give him ample reason to do all the things that he did to Griffith. But no, we get this weird incest bit, and it's it just feels unnecessary.
Yeah.
But as you were saying, from the perspective of there was more rape in the Golden Age arc than there was afterwards, I don't necessarily feel that that's true. I feel like there's, I mean,
it still happens. I mean, did the trolls do anything?
Yes. The trolls did it a lot.
Yeah.
Every single
the trolls do that. Yeah.
Every single time that the trolls show up, they're there to rape things.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, again, when we first enter the troll den, there's just a giant orgy going on. Actually, there's a lot of orgies after the Golden
Yeah,
Age arc.
yeah, because the Holy See has it too. I'm
Yeah.
not saying it's bereft of sex. I guess it doesn't explore psychological trauma of rape within the other characters as much anymore.
Well, it does with Farnese when we meet the horse demon that
Yeah,
basically shifts her entire character.
I don't know. Yeah, yeah. I mean that is the catalyst. I don't know. With Farnese, I feel like just the whole experience of seeing demons and seeing this shit for the first time. I don't think the horse demon was the one thing. It was the
Yeah.
whole experience of
Oh,
that night.
being possessed. And
Culmination of that
I
changed your perspective.
I find it interesting that I haven't seen that happen again. We've never really seen someone get possessed again like that.
Huh. I mean,
Have we?
I don't know. I mean,
I guess it also makes a difference when it's like a one-on-one interaction and it happens. And no, I guess you're right, because we had like the pagans, the entirety of them were possessed and turned into these killing monsters.
yeah.
So I guess that's not fair. You're right.
Yep.
It just happens on a grander scheme.
And you know, I think about it. I was about to say more death happens in the Golden Age arc, but that's not necessarily true until the Eclipse. Like
Yeah.
pretty much every named character that's of significance dies during the Eclipse, and if they don't die then they're a bad guy. Like the Band of the Hawk has nothing but victories till then, other than the loss of Griffith himself, I suppose.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, again, literally after the Eclipse, the Band of the Hawk is just it is no more. And everything that's left of it, with the exception of Guts, who even you could also argue has completely changed from that event on. But everyone is completely different. The three people other than Guts that survive that. Because we have Casca, Griffith, and Rickert.
And Rickert wasn't even at the Eclipse.
You're right.
He didn't experience it.
He experienced like the demons outs. Yeah, no, he experienced Zod and the Skull Knight.
Yeah.
He watched that.
But there's a difference between being in the cyclone and out of the cyclone.
You're right. He got the secondhand experience of it.
And actually watching Griffith betray you.
Yeah.
The choice.
Yeah, that's true, because that's a big point of the post is when Griffith reincarnates and Rickert's like, "Oh, Griffith's back. We can start the Band of the Hawk again." And then Guts just goes full blood rage mode and he has no idea what's going on.
Right, because Gus hasn't told him anything. You need to read ahead, because
I'm getting there.
Interesting stuff happens with Rickert.
Oh, really? We get back to Rickert?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
yeah,
good.
we do.
I'm glad.
We do.
I honestly like when we come back to his character. I like seeing how he develops as a character.
That's one thing Berserk does really well, is moving to other characters and showing things from their point of view, but doing it selectively.
Right.
Whenever we shift to a point of view of another character, it's at least a character you care about, or you're going to be interested in. Like, I actually really like the prostitutes in the Holy See arc.
Yeah.
Luca and I don't remember her name, but the one with the really curly hair.
Yeah. No, I agree. The
one with the curly hair has a really, really interesting narrative arc about how being dependent on people makes you hate them. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "I really like you guys now, but I have to leave and forge my own life, because I know if I continue to depend on you, I'll eventually hate you again."
Mm-hmm.
This is a great ending line. And, her whole narrative of her being a coward and whatnot is just, it's really great.
I like it too, because I feel like a portion of her story really mirrors and almost is a precursor to Farnese's story, in that having someone depend on you can make you a better person. Because we see those moments where she's stuck with Casca and she's like, "No, I just want to kill you. I can't stand having you." But then she realizes it's like, "Oh, but you're depending on me." And so, I mean,
Okay.
Her character kind of remains a coward regardless, but I feel like it's a precursor to that thing that happens with Farnese where she has the same situation where it's like, oh well, I'm useless, I can't do anything, but then it's like, but I can protect this person, I can stand up when it counts.
So forgive me. Berserk is really hard to not spoil things in discussion, just because everything is like all the narrative
tied.
arcs are such a blur. But has it gotten to the point where pretty much most of the female cast is at least displaying a degree of affection towards Guts?
No. I don't
Okay.
think so. I don't feel it.
Okay, well,
I mean, to a very faint extent. Like, I don't. Does that happen with Shirka?
yes.
Okay, no, then no.
Well,
okay, no, you're right. I guess it's very subtle, but you're right. She does have like those internal moments where she like feels like he's special.
Read further ahead, and I guess we'll have a discussion on that some other time.
Okay, that's fine.
Again, I mean, I'm trying to be careful about it.
That's the bitch. It's the bitch of being at different. We're not. It's funny because I feel like, I mean, this is a whole discussion for another day. But like the length of a series, it's like I feel like I've been reading Berserk for quite a while and I've read quite a lot. But it's like I'm only 2/3 of the way through the story so far. So I mean, you have that last third over me.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to parse out which personal narrative developments have happened at what point you're at versus where I'm at is becoming a real obstacle for me.
And I guess that could be a problem of it could be I'm sitting here bitching about something and you're like, well, that get fixed later on. Or it's like, oh yeah, I love this character right now. It's like, yeah, they become a shitbag later. Which, I mean, I wouldn't doubt. And I think that in itself is just a good testament to Berserk as a series.
Okay, I mean, how do you feel about Griffith pre and post Golden Age arc? Because I mean, we talked about Guts. Guts is getting softer. I like that Guts is getting softer. I think that makes sense.
I agree.
I think, the Dark Swordsman arc is about him being at his lowest moment, and if the manga just continued that, I think it'd have been boring. It needed to go. It kind of had to go this direction.
Yeah.
And Guts kind of did have to form a party around him because he's becoming more like Griffith, even if it's unintentional.
Yeah.
And a big part of the Golden Age arc was when he's like, I have to leave on my own so that I can become Griffith's equal.
Yeah.
And now he kind of is becoming Griffith's equal.
Yeah. I mean,
and not to spoil too far ahead, but if Griffith has his own kingdom, and if Guts does get revenge on him,
Guts would then become king.
What happens then? Does Guts have his own kingdom?
Yeah. Interesting.
Or does Guts just leave anarchy in his wake, which he has done?
Yes.
The stuff Guts leaves behind is nasty.
But okay, so Griffith as a character. Griffith is such an interesting force. I feel like he's more of a force in Berserk. Because early on, again, he's basically what he gives Guts the opportunity. He gives him family. He gives him something that Guts never really had before. And he gives him a purpose other than just being a killing machine. He gives him a focus and even in a sense,
which I would argue Guts has done to Serpico and Farnese.
Yes.
He's given them the purpose that she was looking for that the church never provided.
Right. I agree. But Griffith as a character, early on especially, I feel he is one of his strongest traits is that he's very goal oriented, but in doing that, he doesn't really care who he hurts along the way or what he has to do, which leads him to also come off as very manipulative. And I mean, that doesn't change. But I'm trying to think of some of like Griffith's more softer character moments.
Well, I think Griffith is always a manipulator.
Oh no, 100%. Yeah, that does not change ever.
I know you're not at this point, but there's a point where a character basically tells a story about ducks, and I think it, even though it's supposed to be characterized,
is it his psychic?
Yes.
Okay, because we've met her.
Sonia,
that one.
There's a point where she meets Shirka, and she tells a story about ducks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she starts telling the story of the ugly duckling, right?
Mm-hmm.
She goes, "Once upon a time, there was an ugly duckling," but then, Ivalra's like, "Oh, I know how this one goes," but then the narrative shifts. She's like, "And this ugly duckling was actually a kite, which is a type of bird of prey, right? Kite."
Yeah.
And it turns out that this falcon or hawk, depending on the translation, taught the kite that she was a kite and not a duck. So ducks are analogous to just normal people, and birds of prey are special people.
Yeah.
In this narrative, and to cut the story short, what Griffith does is he makes people feel special. She's like, "I'm number 2 in the world. He's number 1, and everyone else is below us."
Mm-hmm.
And Griffith makes everybody else feel like they're number 2 by saying, "I'm really, really special, and you're just right there."
Mm-hmm.
And you see him do this to so many people. All of his apostles, "You're number 2 and I'm number 1." To Sonia, "I'm number 1, you're number 2 for this medium thing."
Mm-hmm.
In terms of like fiefdom and rulership, to Princess Charlotte, "I'm number 1, I'm king, and you're number 2, my queen." So everybody feels like they've attained greatness because I'm great. That's what Griffith does. And in retrospect, I think that's what he did to Guts too. It's
100%.
We're just so caught up in Guts's point of view during the Golden Age arc that it actually seems, I think some people interpret it as sincerity when he says things like, "You're most important to me." But at the same time, he does do that reckless thing with Charlotte, so maybe it was true.
Well,
maybe Guts really was, in Griffith's eyes, his number 2.
But then you also have like,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but he was the only one Griffith trusted with his backstabbing, dark
deeds,
schemes within the kingdom, and assassination missions.
His filthy acts for a reasonable price.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but at the same time, you could argue he did the same thing to Casca in that he made her feel special. Like, she was so important, but only just enough to constantly string her along.
Yeah.
To make it so that she would always support everything he did. Even if he was not interested in pursuing her, he wanted her to feel that kind of special, so she would always be there at his side. And I mean, you can... I don't feel like we see a lot of interaction between Griffith and the rest of the Golden Age party that I can think of. It's just understood that everyone looks up to him with a sense of awe.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my thing is that I'm not sure if Griffith is that different pre or post Golden Age. Like, has his character changed that substantially now that he's an apostle and a demon? Well, he's Godhead, actually.
Yeah, he's
I guess a higher status.
Not really. I mean, again, it's the way that I feel like it's just the way that you have to look at him that has changed, and that he's also. I can't even say that it's not like he's not dependent on other people, but I feel like it's just to be understood.
I mean,
I don't know.
His ambition inherently makes him dependent on other people.
Right.
Because you can't have a kingdom without subjects.
Right.
At
the same time, I mean, I guess, and maybe this gets answered later on, but I the question in me arises of, if Griffith is a god hand, does he need all of these people to overtake, or is it more of a, in a sense, formality, but also in the way of, if he takes it, this is a weird way of saying it, but if he goes the human route about doing it, almost a messianic kind of way of doing it, in that he incarnates himself as human to go about it, doing things the human way, so that people will, in a sense, worship him. Whereas if he were to just come down as a god hand, raining fire, and just wipe out everyone, I mean, he would still have his ambition of conquering.
I absolutely don't think he'd go as far if he wasn't masquerading as the Falcon of Light.
Well, yeah, no, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, he has
he absolutely needs to have a band, the second Band of the Hawk, where it's people and demons working together.
Mm-hmm. Versus if
to galvanize a society, mm-hmm. and to give the people that he's going to subject and rule over a sense of safety.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just as Guts incidentally ruins the lives of a lot of people he happens across early on, especially in the Black Swordsman arc, Griffith kind of incidentally makes people's lives better.
Mm-hmm.
But it's he's just kind of empty ambition without a higher sense of purpose. So I guess the big question is, did Griffith do anything wrong?
At what point? Like, anywhere in the series? Or like...
Yeah, I mean, it's a big meme in the Berserk community online. Did Griffith do anything wrong?
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Usually referring to in the Golden Age arc, but at all in the entire series, yeah. Was it wrong? The question is, was it wrong for him to sacrifice the entire Band of the Hawk so that he could become Femto?
Mm-hmm.
Because they had signed their life away for him so that he could get his own kingdom.
I'm sorry,
they were willing to risk their lives for the sake of his.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue, yes, it is, because, like you mentioned, Corcus, it is implied that there's a condition of, yeah, we could die, but if we do live, we get a cut of that glory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Griffith never tells him that for sure. Well, actually, he might. I don't know. But
I don't think he ever...
It's heavily implied that you will get some of the glory if you live.
Right.
And to be fair, no, it's not like that offer's off the table.
Mm-hmm.
If you survived the eclipse, maybe you can go join him again.
Yeah. I mean, it's understood that Guts hates Griffith, but we don't know for a fact that it's the other way around.
I don't think Griffith really... Griffith might think about Guts in a nostalgic way.
Right.
But I guess if the big difference between Femto and Griffith from the Golden Age is that he's even less emotional. Mm-hmm. In that, he really is just empty ambition after the resurrection.
Mm-hmm.
And he's totally given up any humanity and any bonds towards people that he might have once had.
Mm-hmm.
Not 100% sold that he had them to begin with. It's very debatable.
Yeah. I mean,
just because, like I said, he's always been a manipulator, and he's always been kind of distant and a kind of cold character.
Yeah. I mean, again, but that point can be made, and I feel like it's at that moment when, like, Guts leaves and you essentially see Griffith snap, where we get that more or less brief glimpse of his humanity.
I'll say this, I'm surprised how little of the other God Hand we get post Golden Age.
I know.
You would think they would do something.
Nah, no, they
And
just
all we've gotten is like the woman one,
yeah,
and she
she's
just kind of causes orgies and shit, and it's like
well, we
it's
had
just so okay. There's one that causes like plagues of
mhm
rats
mhm
at one point.
yeah, we is that cuz I know we have that one moment and I this might be what you're talking about where we have like that one the one weird squinty puckering one we have a giant version of his face just appear in the Holy See arc.
Yeah, yeah, he causes plagues at points, but it's
Mhm.
like none of them are remotely as active or ambitious or really doing anything
Yeah.
like Griffith is.
We don't know all again the only thing at least where I am that we know about them is it's insinuated they were all regular people at one point
Yeah,
and
and
then
then
they were given basically the same offer as Griffith, but nothing's really shown to insinuate anything interesting about them.
I feel like they're waiting for Griffith to set the world's conditions to a certain point,
Mhm.
and then they're gonna do something.
Mhm.
Maybe,
Maybe. I mean, is
I
it
don't know.
Griffith is like they constantly mention a prophecy in the world and it's
Yeah.
like he's supposed to be like is he supposed to be like a bringer of the apocalypse or what is it? I'm trying to remember.
Well, there's a hawk of light and a hawk of darkness,
Mm,
and the hawk of light is going to cause all the bad things to go away, and the hawk of darkness is going to be bringing all the terrible things to all these people.
mm,
And Griffith is presenting himself as the hawk of light,
mm-hmm.
and within the narrative, another person gets framed as the hawk of darkness. Now, I think it's pretty obvious that Griffith himself is actually the hawk of darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you look at his femto form and you
Yeah.
just consider the fact that yeah, he's saving all these people in Midland with his new band of the Hawk,
Mm-hmm.
but he's also the one who brought all this danger here in the first place.
Right.
It's the equivalent of like if you're on a hiking trip up near like the I don't know some high up plateau, and a guy you guys are like at the edge of a precipice, and somebody shoves you, but then grabs your clothes and pulls you right back in, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, "I saved your life." It's like, yeah, but you're the one who put my life in danger in the first place.
Mm-hmm. But
But
so
without
much
that perception of the first act,
yeah.
they don't have the perception of the fact that he's the one shoving them. They just have the rescue.
Yeah. I think that's a good comparison. I agree.
And obviously people think maybe Skull Knight is the actual Hawk of Light. Maybe Guts is. We don't know who's going to end up actually destroying Griffith, or
It's Casca.
if Griffith will actually get destroyed, because it's all so vague about. But I definitely believe Griffith is masquerading. Some people actually think he is the legit Hawk of Light,
I don't see it.
and that he that what he's doing is going to end up being pious, and that he's actually playing the God hand. I don't.
I don't see it.
Yeah.
I mean that would be interesting. That would be an interesting turn.
It would. I mean, Griffith already just complicates things in a lot of good ways by doing what he's doing, because yeah, he's leaving the world a better place, and if Guts kills him, all of these people will be without guidance. They will be without hope.
Yeah.
It'll.
It's very similar to but on a more grand scale when you had that Holy See arc where you have that priest that's leading all of these people and Guts is fighting him. You have that final battle where he like becomes a literal angel, and it's like, and all the people are like, "Oh, our angel has come to save us." But they don't know the reality of the situation is it's like, "Oh no, but he's actually oppressing all of them." and Guts is trying to destroy him
In
because
fact, I think I'm realizing the biggest difference between Guts and Griffith now that you mentioned that.
mm-hmm.
And that's that Griffith teaches everybody to depend on him and to see him as the highest thing,
Mm-hmm.
while Guts really tries to teach people to cleave their own way and to learn to fight for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there's the great line where he says to Farnese, is to not pray, but to hold this torch, because if you're praying, you can't fight.
It's deep. So, first question. Do you think that the quality of Berserk drops after the Golden Age arc?
I don't think I think after the Golden Age arc, it's not as narratively tight. It's not. It's a little more meandering narratively. It's not like the Golden Age arc where I'm seeing pieces line up, and it's all culminating into a greater whole. There's a lot of things where it's just kind of like, okay, that's there, and for why, you're just kind of not like the King thing I mentioned earlier, where it's like, I think he went too far. More like there's just a lot of, I guess, a lot more excess post Golden Age, and it might be a little bit more lighthearted.
Mm-hmm.
Although I kind of like it better tonally like that, because I kind of like more emotionally up and down type stories, and I kind of like the group that Guts is with, the more traditional adventure party. And for one thing, I really like the fact that the Berserk setting is so fluid, and that things are so subject to change, that you do just suddenly get magic. And I think there's something to be said about a constantly changing world.
Right.
That we almost need the example Berserk provides.
Mm-hmm.
There are story arcs in Berserk I would give a 9 out of 10 instead of a 10 out of 10.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're not as narratively complex, but they're always either thematically important, or there's nothing bad. It's really difficult. Berserk is almost like the Golden Age arc is that first potato chip you eat, and it's the tastiest damn chip you've ever had. But as you kind of keep eating chips, the chips don't start getting bad. You just kind of get used to and numb to it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. I like that. That's a good analogy. I like that. And I mean,
they do definitely feel different, though. There is a difference there.
But is that a good difference?
I'm gonna say yes. I like Berserk. I think it does. It needed to continue after the Golden Age arc.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I do. Okay, some people argue it would be better if the Golden Age arc was the ending, because then Guts is just damned, and you kind of get that Shakespearean tragedy, like, of, okay, he's damned to hell and there's no salvation for him at all. There's no hope at the end of the tunnel. There's nothing he can do, right? If you ended at the Golden Age arc, you just have the Dark Swordsman arc, and he's just cursed forever, and that's it. Versus this, where things are looking a little more hopeful. There are other types of astral realms and that kind of intermingle, and there's positive aspects too. I'm just going to leave it at that and say I feel like the narrative as it is now is telling something more nuanced and complex than you're just damned for all of fucking eternity.
Right.
Which is how it would be if you just left it at the end of the Golden Age arc. Right. And that's my piece.
Well, I feel like part of what made the Golden Age arc so great was that early foreshadowing that we get from the Black Swordsman arc, that very tiny piece that shows what is to come. I feel like that is an incredibly driving factor of the Golden Age arc, at least for me. I feel like that created a lot of intrigue, and it made me curious to know what was going to happen, because it's like, oh, it's like, well, I get all these name drops early on, but who are these people? And then you meet them, and it's like, oh God, what's gonna happen? And
If you like things a little bit more nihilistic and hopeless, then yeah, the Golden Age arc is better left untouched by future stuff.
no, I feel like even the future stuff, it's different. It's definitely a lot different, and it's not as compact within itself. You could take that Golden Age arc, as you said, and just take it and set it by itself, and it would be a full story. Again, it would be a
Yeah.
very bleak story, but you could sit it there and just read that by itself. But
And you
I
can argue it's an actual legit masterpiece. It doesn't have stuff like Chestnut Puck or plot points that you're kind of like, okay, where are you going with this?
mhm,
Everything's kind of neatly tied up. It doesn't have that one arc leads to the next arc, leads to the next arc, kind of ambiguousness.
right. But I feel like if you were to just read the Golden Age arc, you're doing Berserk as a series a major disservice. I feel like it is a series that is it just, if nothing else, from that Golden Age arc, it deserves that you read further into it, because it sets the story up so beautifully, and it really builds that interest, that investment. Even then, even if we just have Guts as the remaining character, it's seeing this is what he could do at first. Now where is he going to go from here? And I mean, I know I've made this comparison before. To me, almost to an extent, Berserk feels like a very grand Dungeons and Dragons campaign. And I know that's a bit cheesy to say, but I love that flow, that interest, how these characters, how the story is told, and how it feels like there's some grandmaster behind this, all orchestrating these ups and downs and this flowing story. And it's, as much as I do love the Golden Age arc, I don't feel like it hits the end of it, plateaus. I don't feel like the series jumped the shark at the end of the Golden Age arc. I still feel like it definitely has its ups and downs afterwards. And it, do you feel like there is a point that you've read so far where Berserk overtakes the Golden Age arc, where there is a higher point of interest, or a
Um,
higher quality aspect? And I know that's a very hard question to
no, no, no,
answer.
no, no. Oh, it's a fair question. I think Berserk becomes more cerebral as it goes on. He's tackling, the astral realm and concepts of thought generating things within itself. And Berserk has always been very interested in psychology.
Mm-hmm.
And the further exploration of that is definitely a net good. Um, yeah, no, I don't think later parts of Berserk have that Shakespearean tragedy quality that I keep mentioning the Golden Age arc has. Um, and you never get another moment quite like the eclipse, even though every climax really tries to be as over the top and as high as possible, without characters dying all at once suddenly, and without that fallout and that sense of you've hit rock bottom that the eclipse left. It's all kind of spectacle
Mm-hmm.
in comparison.
Yeah. Do you feel like, does the world feel safer now, or not? Like, now that we have all of these random magical creatures come in, it's like, but we haven't had
In a weird way, yeah,
we
because
haven't had a real major cast member die yet. Like,
The problem within the society during the Golden Age arc is it's mostly people doing bad things to people.
mm-hmm,
Yes, the astral realm has already started to bleed in. That's why Puck is a thing in the Golden Age arc. Because I mean, he's not within the main story. He's off in a caravan with some travelers, and he gets, that's how Jadot has Puck's some of the fairy dust in a bottle.
mm-hmm,
That was actually Puck's that he had met in
mm-hmm.
the caravan years ago.
Yeah.
And Zod exists in the Golden Age arc because the astral realm has already started to bleed into their setting all the way from the beginning, from before the time Guts was even born. Actually, this
Mm-hmm.
is a thing that's been happening.
Mm-hmm.
However, the big conflict mostly is it's people being shitty to people, and people are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And Guts is like the ultimate victim to. There's a lot of narcissism, and everybody's kind of out for number one, and people are trying to strive to survive. And the funny thing is that humanity has kind of been galvanized towards a higher goal in the need for survival. All of these monsters have made people become less petty because we need to live against those.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and monsters are easier to predict. They just want to like come and eat you and rape you. The trolls aren't as conniving and backstabbing as some of these politicians are.
Right.
They don't pretend to be your friend. They're a harder problem to solve in that they're going to kill you right away, but people are banding together. So in a way, yeah, the world is kind of more safe, but it's all a facade within the world that Griffith is shaping.
That makes sense. And I think that's a
And
good thing.
once Guts, if he does, destroys that. If Griffith goes, so dude does all this fantastical stuff that's brought people together, and for a greater sense of humanity, and once again people will fall into their lesser selves.
And I think that's a great way to build a story too. I think just leaving that as the question right now is it's like in the case of Griffith, it's like, oh, he's building this world up, and he's building this what appears to be a safer world for everyone. And it's like, in one hand, it leads to the question of, if Guts were to ruin that, would that make him the bad guy? And I like a story that has to make you think like that.
Thank you for watching my show and Blake's show. Make sure to do all the stuff that YouTubers tell you to do, like the comment and the subscribe thingy, and uh, um, uh, important non sequitur, absolutely random noise to close the ending, coming in 3, 2, 1. Ah!
Yay.
There we go. It's over.